And now, right to your host of this House of Musicians, Barry Smith.
Hey, good listeners. Welcome to this House of Musicians radio show on Reality Radio 101. We hope you enjoy the next hour with us as we do our small part to help promote musicians, bands, and, of course, venues. Gary Labar, how are you, sir?
I'm fine. I'm excited tonight. There's a little piece of history in Canada.
Yeah, you know about this.
And even though I was not here when these guys, I was obviously, as you know, born and raised in New York, but I know I actually grew up and went to the same high school and became friends with a fellow who I know Greg would know, Phil Nero, God rest his soul. We both went to the same high school and we lived in the same town, but you know, Phil ended up playing with John of Brighton Rocks, and I'm not going to say who your guest is, but we have a history right here coming up.
We have history. We have a connection with you and Greg, and maybe you'll get to ask him some questions about former bandmates, Gare. Maybe we'll get you to do that. Sure.
So who is your guest?
Folks, tonight we have the one and only Mr. Greg Fraser from the band Brighton Rocks and his new band Storm Force. Greg is a Canadian guitarist, singer, and songwriter born in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Greg's family moved to Niagara Falls when he was 6 years old and began learning to play guitar at the age of 10. As a teen, he joined a local band called Lennox, and at the same time coming into contact with former David Bowie guitarist Mick Ronson. Hey, Fraser and Lennox recorded an album with Ronson, but the group soon disbanded and the album was never released. Lennox offered Fraser an opportunity to gain management representation. I'm just stumbling over representation here as an artist, and Fraser began auditioning singers for a new group with bassist Stevie Screeves in 1982. This would eventually lead to Jerry McPhee joining Fraser and Screeves in what would become Brighton Rock, following the addition of drummer Mark Cavarzan and guitarist Martin Victor. Brighton Rock gained popularity on the strength of hit singles We Came to Rock and Can't Wait for the Night, and would go on to earn 2 gold records, Amazing, and 3 Juno nominations. In 1988, Greg was named Best New Guitarist at the Toronto Music Awards, beating out many other musicians, including Jeff Healey. Folks, there we go. I'm not going to continue reading this, but maybe I will. There's some more interesting. Let me do that. After Brighton Rock broke up in 1992, Fraser wrote briefly with members of Triumph and joined Helix during touring for their 1993 It's a Business Doing Pleasure album. And in 2000, Greg and Screeves formed Phrase Gang, releasing 2 albums under that mantle before reforming Brighton Rock in 2012. Now we go to skip ahead to 2017. Fraser formed a new band called Storm Force. You guys got to check this band out. It's just incredibly energetic, adopting the melodies from Brighton Rock, but also featuring the harder edge influences of bands like UFO, Thin Lizzy, and Van Halen. Storm Force released their debut album, Age of Fear, in 2020 to critical acclaim worldwide. And folks, we're going to hear 2 of those songs off that album tonight. Greg Fraser, how are you?
I'm exhausted after that intro. Oh, my God. Jesus.
And so am I. Sorry to keep you waiting.
I'm all good, gentlemen. It's a pleasure being on your show, and I'm honored that you asked me on. And, it's great, man. How you guys doing?
We're doing well. Thank you.
Doing absolutely fine, and better now that I get to spend an hour talking with you and your wonderful music career. Let's do this, Greg. Let's start at the beginning, like I do with all my artists, about how you were influenced by music when you were younger. I know you started playing guitar at 10, which is amazing. I'm interested to know what are some of the first songs you learned on your guitar. I know for me it was like Johnny Cash's Folsom Prison and probably Smoke on the Water. But anyway, that's a whole other show. I'm just curious how you were influenced. Maybe your folks were musicians, or your brother or sister had an album collection that you used to listen to when they weren't around, but definitely curious to how you were influenced and what maybe the first songs you were when you learned how to play guitar.
Well, when I was born in Sault Ste. Marie, my father, he had his own TV and radio show in Sault Ste. Marie. And back then, radio was really big. It's not like now where there's tons of radio stations and internet and TV. Back then, radio was king. If you're driving around, everybody had the radio on. You had the radio on at home because the TV wasn't much on TV anyways. Only had a couple of channels, stuff like that. So he was quite the celebrity. So from the time I was born, we'd be listening to my dad on the radio, and so music was part of my life from the get-go, and then it just never changed. I got into sports as I got a little older and stuff like that, but music was always there, and I was always part of my life. And like you mentioned, by the time I was 10 years old, I had the itch and I had to get a guitar. And Smoke in the Water was probably one of the first songs too, because it is an easy song, but it's got that driving rock force. But then I started taking a couple of lessons just to learn how to do basic chords and stuff like that. But the teacher would teach you stuff like, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and, like stuff from those old Mel Bay guitar books and stuff like that, which it's not very exciting, but you got to learn the basics. And then after a while, once I felt I learned the basics, I wanted to learn how to play rock music, and he wouldn't teach you. He wanted you to learn theory and all that kind of stuff. And I just said, no, I can't keep doing it. So I did the old school way, just listened to lots of radio and lots of records, and learning from that. You get a song you latch onto, and you just try to play it over and over and over and over. And then learning from people that are also musicians, maybe a little bit older. I had a couple of friends who were a little bit older than me that were musicians, so I'd literally just study them and watch them and pick up things and go watch other bands and stuff like that. And and then from that point on, it became my whole life playing guitar, and I just never put it down ever since then.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. And do you remember what your first guitar was?
I don't. I think the very first one was almost unplayable. And then I got I think I got one of those Gibson Les Paul copies. I think it might have been maybe a Marlin or Dagus or something. I wish I remember, because I've got asked this question a few times before. And, but I have some old scrapbooks. I'm going to have to dig them up, because I got pictures. So I'm going to maybe see if I can dig some old pictures up and see what the guitar was, But yeah,
absolutely.
The first major real guitar was like a Les Paul copy, and that was it. I was off to the races.
Yeah, amazing. And now, so you're 10 years old, you're playing guitar. When was your first kind of step on stage or play to an audience playing guitar? Or when was that? How did that come to be?
Well, I think we had at school, in grade 6, I seem to remember they had a talent show and stuff like that. So people, a girl would go up and do the baton, and somebody do a dance. And then a friend of mine, he could kind of sing, and I knew some basic chords. So I went up and played guitar. He sang a song. I can't remember what it was, maybe The House of the Rising Sun or something. But I remember being really nervous. I couldn't look at the crowd at all. I remember looking down. Oh my God, I just got to get through this and not make any mistakes. I just couldn't even face the crowd. And then when the song ended, everybody erupted, and I was like, whoa. And I remember getting this chill, wow, I wasn't expecting that at all, And that was, that kind of lit a little fire under me, but it was a good time, and never looked back.
Yeah, that's the rush that you get when people are digging what you're doing, and it really makes you want to keep doing it. That's for sure. That's the beauty thing about being on stage or playing in front of even families around a fire or your family. It's just, if people dig it and they're singing along, it really does. And it eases the nervousness too, usually after the first or second song, if people are clapping and they're into it, because then okay, well, you know what? They don't hate me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Good for you. So now, sorry, your first, was it at a school then? Your first that was a school in Niagara Falls, Drummond Road School. It's still there, but it's not a school anymore. I think it's an old age home on Drummond Road. Anybody that knows Niagara Falls.
Yeah, so that was it. And then, grade 7, started some, like I meet other guys that are musicians now, and you start your first band and, playing in garages and, maybe little house parties here and there. And then like grade 8. And then by the time I got to grade 9, I was 15. That's 5 years of playing guitar. So I really got a lot better. I mean, because I stuck with it. I practiced a lot. So I was already starting to play bars when I was 15 years old with guys that are already in their 20s and stuff like that. But I could play with them, And then when I was 16, I quit high school. So all I got was a grade 10 education, and I became a full-time musician. That was 1979. I was a full-time musician, and I just continued on from then, just from band to band to band to band, and here we are today.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what a great, so you've never punched a time clock at a factory?
Oh, no, in between bands, a band would break up. You'd be in a band for like 3 months, and all of a sudden there's no band, right? So I remember when
you got to do something, yeah.
Well, because, when you're a new young band, you're not making any money. You're making just enough money to cover expenses, to get enough gas and pay for your crew and all that kind of stuff. So you can't really save any money. So every time a band would break up, I'd get a job somewhere for a few months and I'd, make money. That's how I bought my first Marshall amplifier. I was 18 years old. I worked at a little factory for, 3 or 4 months called Cambridge Brass in Cambridge, cool. Ontario. And that was the factory life, punching in and out. And but I saved all that money, bought a Marshall amplifier, and I bought a car and moved back to Niagara Falls. I should mention it, at that time I was living in Cambridge for 1 year. But anyways, I moved back to Niagara Falls, and that's when I started. But you mentioned earlier that I joined a band called Lennox. So that's when I joined Lennox, and that was it. That's when I, got to really taste being in a recording studio with a real producer, like you mentioned, Mick Ronson from David Bowie fame. That was the first producer I ever worked with, so I learned a lot from him. And it seemed to go by pretty quick, like from 10 to I was like 19. It was 9 years. There was a lot of stuff going on from band to band to band, and bands would fail, but there was always something I learned. It's like, okay, well, now when I start my new band, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to have work with those type of people. It's all a learning process, and all valuable too. At the time, it seems like, oh, this is bullshit. What am I doing with this? But then you find that it's all part of the learning thing. And see, that's the difference between being a musician compared to people that like go to university to learn, whether a doctor or a lawyer. You got to go to university to learn that kind of stuff. You can't really go to university to learn how to be a touring rock musician. You literally got to get out there and learn as you go. And that's what you do, so every band I was in was a learning process, and every band I went and watched, I would learn from, so yeah, it's all part of the game. I don't know what your question was, but I hope I answered it.
Yeah, you sure did. And I'm just curious. I want to talk about Brighton Rock's very successful band. But before we do that, what kind of tunes were you playing in Lennox? You were very young.
Yeah, well, Lennox they were already an existing band from Niagara Falls. And we're all roughly the same age. A couple of guys are a little bit older. But they were a touring band that had management. And that's one of the things that my prior bands never had. We never had management. All we had was agents. And basically what agents do, they just book your band and that's it. They don't really have any input. They don't, they're not knocking on doors trying to get your record deal. They're not trying to, and so they had management, and they already went to Japan, which was pretty crazy for, a teenage band. They went all the way to Japan, did a whole bunch of gigs over there. They're playing in New York City and stuff like that. And it's like, wow, that's because of management. So when I joined Lennox, they were a lot more poppy compared to what I was more of a hard rock guitar player. They were more playing stuff like Springsteen and Tom Petty and Jay Giles and Rod Stewart and Mata Hoople and stuff, which was great for me looking back. At the time, I was kind of frustrated. It's like, Well, these bands, and plus at the time when I was in Lennox, we were doing way better gigs, more high profile gigs instead of being stuck up at north all the time, Northern Ontario and Quebec, and playing all these little towns that, you're not really, you're helping yourself become a better musician, a better band, but you're not really putting yourself out there where the industry notices you. Where Lennox, we were getting a lot of high profile gigs. We were playing the Almo Combo and so a lot of major clubs in Toronto, stuff like that. And we'd go all over Canada, stuff like that. So so the music wasn't exactly what I was into, but looking back, I learned a lot from playing that music because when you expand your musical horizon, it really helps you not become one-dimensional. And I was always afraid of that. And I remember, I had a subscription to Guitar World and Guitar Player magazines. And, I used to look up the guys like Richie Blackmore and Michael Schenker and Eddie Van Halen, Jimmy Page. And a lot of them would say that, don't get stuck in a rut, like expand your horizons, learn jazz, learn country, learn polka, whatever, like expand yourself as a musician. So, in a lot of ways, Lennox was a big part of that because I was playing songs I would never play otherwise. And I'd learn how to play new chord voicings on my guitar, learn how to do different arrangements and stuff like that. So by the time I got Brighton Rock, I had this whole palette to pick from instead of just being a one-dimensional band. And so that really helped us, I think, shine above a lot of other bands because of that. We didn't sound like a typical hard rock band. That's why we got a major record label deal because, we kind of stood out. So, hope that answered your question.
Absolutely, Bud. And definitely never hurts to broaden your horizons. The more experience, the more you learn and the more songs that you can play and the more experience you get, of course, the better you become and the more experience you get. And who knows if, you never know if Alan Jackson's going to call you up one day and say, "Hey, my buddy told me you're a great country picker." And next thing you know, you're touring with him. I mean, the sky's the limit. So I agree with you 100% that it never hurts to not be single-minded into one genre and just learn as much as you can. Absolutely a wonderful statement, and I agree with it 100%. I want to talk about quickly Brighton Rocks. I know we're going to play Two Storm Force, which is a wonderful band that you have now, Two Storm Force songs, but let's talk about Brighton Rocks. I mean, geez, Juno Award nominees, gold records. I mean, geez Louise, Bud. And how that changed when you were doing stuff, playing with Brighton Rock, how that changed your level of your career. Like, let's talk about that. Oh, I'm interested to know how you started Brighton Rock, how it all started up. First question. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so when Lennox broke up, like I mentioned, we did a record with Mick Ronson, but we couldn't get a record deal. We shopped it all everywhere. We had a finished product, and we had an album cover and everything ready to go. So we did all the work for a record company. All you do is just sign us, and then everything's done. We're just give us our money back, what it cost us, and so it didn't happen. So then when I said, okay, well now I'm going to start my band. I wanted to, instead of joining other bands, and that was the problem in the past. You join a band or you start a band, there's always one or two guys that just don't fit in, but you've got no other alternatives. So you're kind of stuck with certain guys, It's like, God, I wish this guy was a better bass player or a better whatever, right? So I made a point when I started Brighton Rock that in my eyes and ears, they had to be A-list musicians. Like I couldn't, to get to if you want to play in the big leagues, you got to be able to, hang with the big leaguers. You can't be faking it because sooner or later you'll get found out. So So me and my buddy Stevie Screeves, a Niagara Falls native, I've known him since I was 15 years old, and we always kept in contact and always threatening to get a band together. So I said, okay, now's the time, man. Let's get a band together. So instead of going and starting a band and going on tour and learning covers and then gradually start putting, originals in here and there. We started right out of the gate writing nothing but originals. We weren't going to play any cover songs. We're going to record. We're going to have a record's worth of material before we even hit the stage even once. We want to make sure that, that's our top priority, is getting a record deal, being an original act. Because what happens when you become a cover act and you're trying to break in originals, people only see you as that cover band. They, anybody from the industry come out, and then that's the way they remember you. They don't have the respect. But if you start out of the gate as an original act, it's a tough going, because you've got nothing behind you. You've got no, we do a tribute to Van Halen. Okay, let's go see them. When you're an original band that nobody's heard of before, it's tough to get gigs. So, we started audition different drummers and singers, and Jerry McGee was our second singer, and we just brought him right into the studio, and we didn't play live. It's like, here, I got some songs, let's hear you sing on here. Let's hear where you actually sound like as though it's going to be on the record, because you can't hide, when you play it live, a lot of times it's so loud in the club, and you can almost hear the vocals. There's echo and reverb. So you can't really tell how good the singer really is. You get kind of disguised by a lot of things, but in the studio, it's naked. If you're out of key, you're going to hear it right away. If you don't have good tone, you're going to hear it right away. So I had a couple originals ready to go, and Jerry just knocked it out of the park. And it's like, whoa, listen to that. He brought the songs to a new level. He rewrote some lyrics and stuff like that. And one of the first songs he sang was "Can't Wait for the Night," which became our second single off our first record. So that was it. Then we've got different. We got another drummer and a keyboard player, and we solidified it. And then the hunt was on to get a record deal, and we just went from there.
Yeah, it's always amazing when somebody comes in and just jives like that for you. It's a relief. Absolutely. And the thing about it was my manager from Lennox, he continued to be my manager. So every time I'd have a song, I'd submit it to him. He goes, "Hey man, you're on to something here. Keep him coming. I could get you a deal. I could get you a record deal." So that was the thing. And he was good friends with Jerry McGee, because they were both from Hamilton. And he was the one that turned me on to Jerry. I met Jerry in the past, but I didn't really know him too well, because he lived in Hamilton, which is, a good 30, 45 minutes away. So, we'd see each other maybe at the odd festival, but we never really hung out before. And so that was a big plus, getting Jerry on board. That was a key part of the whole project, was getting a voice like that with somebody that had a lot of power and a lot of charisma, and he filled the void that we were looking for. Yeah, no kidding. And so here you are, Brighton Rocks. I know that you earned 2 gold records and 3 Juno nominations. Had you heard your music on the radio before Brighton Rocks?
Well, one of the things before we were Brighton Rock, we were called Heart Attack. And there's a radio station that still exists in Toronto called Q107. And every year they put an album out, like a battle of the bands type of thing. So they'd have 10 different bands with original material on there. Q107 Homegrown contest, they would call it every year. And so we submitted, and we have a song called "Breaking Down the Barricade." It made it on the record, and
cool.
So right away, the companies are aware of you. So, okay, well, who are these guys? Q107 says they're good. Let's check out all these different bands. And so that kind of got a little bit of our foot in the door. And then, so that was on the radio too. And that was on Q107, which is the biggest radio station in the country. So we were hearing ourselves then, and that was unbelievable, because that was my first time ever hearing ourselves on the radio. It's like, wow, check that out, So then,
what a moment.
Yeah. So then when we did get a record deal, it turned out in our record company had another band called Jack Mack and the Heart Attack. So it's like, well, we can't have 2 bands with Heart Attack, so we're going to have to change the name. So then we became Brighton Rock, and that was it.
Yeah, awesome, man. It's a very successful band. I want to play a Storm Force song here, your new band, but I want to ask you how you came up with the name Brighton Rock.
We were getting a lot of names tossed at us. Our singer was reading a book by a guy named Graham Greene called Brighton Rock. It's about the mods and the rockers in England. And, every time we go up north and stuff like that, we'd pass this city called Brighton, Ontario.
Yep.
So somebody, I forget, rec company or it might have been the management, one of the names was Brighton Rock. And we all went, hey, yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's cool. And then our singer goes, I like it too, but there's a song called Brighton Rock by Queen. And people are going to think we're a Queen band. It's like, but we all kind of went, I don't know, man. Once the record's out and people maybe forget that kind of stuff, but not too many people got confused by it. Once they heard the record, we don't sound like Queen at all. So, that was it. Somebody suggested, I can't remember if it was the management or rec company guys, but we were getting a lot of names tossed at us, and it was just nah. And Brighton Rock was the one we all went, wait a minute, like we kind of like that one the best, and it stuck, and we never looked back.
Yeah, it worked out good for you for sure. Let's do this. Let's play Age of Fear from your new band off the album called Age of Fear. This is the title track. You released this January 28th, 2020. Just amazing musicians. Great song, great album. Folks, I have Greg Fraser on the show this evening. On this episode of this House of Musicians radio show, we're going to hear his song Age of Fear, again from the album called Age of Fear, right here on this House of Musicians radio show on Reality Radio 101. Hey, good listener. Welcome back to this House of Musicians radio show. We just heard Greg FRASER, founder of the band Brighton Rock, and we just heard his song Age of Fear from his new band, Storm Force. Of course, the album was released January 28th, 2020, and it's the title track of the album. Love the song, definitely metal. Greg, I'm sure I have an idea of what the song's about, but I want to know how it came about for you. It definitely seems like a diss out to the media for let's say, the bullshit that they try to tell us all the time. But tell me your side of how you came up with Age of Fear.
Well, our singer, Pat Gillardi, he wrote the words, but the title itself, it's just, you hear a term a lot lately, clickbait, right? You're scrolling down, whether it's Facebook or whatever, and there's because there's so much competition in media, they have to put like a really juicy headline that everybody latches onto. And so a lot of times they'll say something, fearful to try to go, oh my God. So they draw you in, and everything, so that became the title. And, now more than ever, there's this age of fear, like, oh my God, COVID, we're going to die, like everything. It's weird how that song, like you mentioned, it's a title track from the record. How that title now is more appropriate than ever, because like even just with the truck convoys in Ottawa and stuff like that's still happening, there is a lot of people right now that are fearful how things are unfolding. So, but I got to give the credit for the actual lyrics, for pretty much the whole record to our singer, Pat Gillardi. Wish he was on here. He could explain, in more detail the actual song itself, lyric wise. But the title itself, I think, kind of sums it up.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and the lyrics absolutely sum it up. I want to do this, Greg. I know that Gary Labar, he doesn't usually say too much during our episodes or during our shows, but I know he has a bit of a connection with you. He grew up in New York, and he mentioned, oh, geez, when we first started talking about Brighton Rock, oh, geez, I know who those guys are. I know that band. So, Gary, I want to involve you with Greg and maybe have some questions you want to ask him.
Sure. I don't know Greg directly or anything, but as I say, we have, I know Greg would know Phil, my buddy, right? Right, Greg? I'm assuming, of course. Phil Nero?
Yeah, Phil Nero. Yeah, unfortunately, he passed away not too long ago.
Right.
I do know Phil. I remember Phil back when he was in Tallis. Before we even were in Brighton Rock, when we were looking for frontmen and singers, me and Stevie Screeves would go to Uncle Sam's in Niagara Falls, Ontario, and then watch Tallis with Billy Sheehan, and Phil Nero he was the lead singer, and he was the monster singer. He had incredible charisma, and he was the guy we wanted. It's like, that if we can get a guy like that,
you should have talked to me. No, Phil and I, we grew apart. You talk about irony. We both went to the same high school. He was a year younger than me.
Is that in Rochester?
In Rondequoit, New York, outside of Rochester. It was Eastridge High School. Yep. And I was, he was a year younger than me, but we were friends because we were both mutual guitar players and interested in music. And he used to hang at my house a lot. And then he moved to Toronto, and I didn't see him for 2-3 decades. And then, I reunited a little bit with him when I immigrated here to Canada. And he had his acoustic gig, the Phil and John show, and playing with Johnny there. So that's my tie basically to you, but not you directly. But what I wanted to ask you, did you ever play Rochester, New York?
Yeah, but
Penny Arcade.
I mentioned him before, the Penny Arcade. We played there with Lennox. And I thought that was unbelievable. I mean, that's the one thing I remember back.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
So I would have been around 19, going on 20, playing the Penny Arcade. And there's one of the first American bars we ever played. And, in Canada, when you're a young band and stuff like that, they're pretty stingy about giving you beer and stuff like that, like the band guys,
Yeah.
Here's a 12-pack. Those we get in the dressing room there is like 2 cases of beer on ice.
Yeah,
like, Is that who's that's for you guys? What?
Well,
we couldn't believe it. It's like, oh my god, that's the first thing I remember. Rochester is like, man, this place rocks.
That would have been Greg Sullivan, the owner back then, and I got my start there too. As a matter of fact, a gentleman named Paul Curcio from Atlantic Records discovered my band back in the 80s when we entered the Rock Wars competition, and we ended up getting signed by those guys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Paul actually did Metallica's Kill 'Em All album and Doobie Brothers and, a lot of stuff. But so I was on Atlantic New York for a few years. But anyways, yeah, I thought it'd be the Penny Arcade. That is an amazing. It's shut down now, actually. It's kind of a hamburger hot dog kind of joint now. It's not really a rock club anymore, which is very discouraging. But what I wanted to ask you, the song we just heard, it reminds me a little bit of stuff that Dio would do, Ronnie James. It's just the vocals are there, and I don't know if that's good or bad for you, but it's a great song. But you know what I really like is you got this really thick Marshall's 80 sound amp type of sound that I really like. I love that sound that just blends beautifully tone-wise with bass guitar. And, I like that. But I wanted to ask you one more question. You're from the Niagara Falls area, give or take, basically for your life. And a lot of great bands came out of that area, like Honeymoon Suite, Saga, things like that. Were you friends with those guys?
Spengali.
Yeah, Spengali. Were you friends with those guys, or did you do any work with them?
Well, going back to the name Lennox one more time, Johnny D, who's the lead singer of Honeymoon Suite, he was one of the 2 singers in Lennox. He played guitar. He was the lead guitar player in Lennox, and he sang half the songs. So then he decided to go solo and form his own band, which became Honeymoon Suite. So when he left Lennox, I replaced Johnny D in Lennox. So yeah, I've known Johnny since I was 18 years old, and I remember even between when Brighton Rock broke up there for a while, like back when I was starting a band called you mentioned earlier, Barry, a Phrase Gang, had a couple of solo records. Me and Johnny D, we even got together. We're going to make our own band together. This is after Honeymoon Suite and Brighton Rock, so we got together and we're writing songs together, but never really panned out. But yeah, I've known Johnny for forever. And the Svengali guys, yeah, I know those guys, since back in the day. We do shows together, and we toured quite a bit with Honeymoon Suite when Brighton Rock was out. The manager we had for Brighton Rock was the same manager for Honeymoon Suite. He only managed 2 bands, Brighton Rock and Honeymoon Suite. So we did a bunch of shows with those guys, and that was fantastic. Our first record just came out, and Honeymoon Suite was already like rock gods in Canada. They already had platinum records out, and they won the Juno for Group of the Year. So it was great. They took us under their wing. We played a lot of major shows together, and it was fantastic.
That, and I just wish back in the day I knew more about you guys, because as I say, I didn't come to Canada until a few years back now. And, I wish I knew more about you, because I really dig your stuff, and I wish you the best. I know this is hard, for musicians not being able to play because of COVID and all that stuff, but you hit the nail on the head. There's one thing that Barry and I have always discussed. And people really hate me for this, and they think, who are you, Gary? Well, I'm nobody, but I'm just giving you my opinion. I loved when you said, if you're really going to be serious as a musician in a band, you got to do original, and you got to push original. If you're going to go out and be a cover band or a tribute band, that's fantastic for, entertainment and making a few bucks here and there. But if you really want to do something, you really got to go out and do the original thing. And I was never in a cover band. I never played, per se, a little bar or anything like that. As you know, the Arcade is a rock club, And the bottom line is, that's the only way I feel that a lot of these kids nowadays, if you want to do something, be original. Go out there and take a chance. You might not make any money. You might not get a lot of gigs. But if you want to be noticed, you can't be playing Bon Jovi stuff. So that's my opinion. But what do I know? It's not my show. Back to you, Barry.
Oh no, I agree. Fantastic, as you say, for people that go out and play covers. And musicians are out there; they're having fun. Not everybody can write songs. Not everybody in band members in the whole band can write songs. But I couldn't agree. I think Greg did it the right way with Storm Force by saying the hell with anything else except we're going to, or Brighton Rock. Brighton Rock, I believe. The hell with going out and playing covers. We're going to hit the scene as an original band, and if they like us, they like us. If they don't, that's the only hope, I believe, in this day and age that musicians have. Unless you do a cover of a Simon and Garfunkel song and make it huge off that happens too. But I'm saying I couldn't agree more with Greg's statement about the hell with it. We're going to go in and record an album of all originals and come out in a storm force of these songs and show the world that we're our own stuff and not be stuck in the rut of cover stuff. So, but I'm not going to diss guys that have cover bands because they're out having fun, they're making money, and it's not always easy to play other people's songs. It's especially if you're doing a gig. I have to admire cover bands in the fact that they can play 20 different musician songs, and if they sound good, I know a band that does covers, they sound great, and every song they play, and it's not an easy thing to do necessarily, but totally I'm on. I've always only recorded originals. Actually, no, that's not true. First, in my earlier days, I recorded a couple of cover tunes, maybe 2 or 3 or 4, but out of the 50 songs I have online, they're all original too. So I agree with that statement. Greg, tell me about how Stormforce came to be.
Around 2017, being a songwriter, the songs just keep accumulating year after year, and I started another project with a guy. Geez, I forgot his name. He's an American singer. Oh my God! Anyways, we started. It was going to be another original project, and he was an American singer. But it was hard to get it off the ground, because of the distance and stuff like that. It became quite evident that gigs are going to be. He'd have to fly in to do a gig, and I have to fly in to. So it kind of fizzled out, and I made sure that my next band's got to be guys that are A-list musicians, but live near me, so that way we can get together and rehearse and get together for photos and band meetings, stuff like that. So I just phoned some local guys. A singer, Pat Ghilardi, I've known him since I was in grade 7. He's a couple of years younger than me, but I used to go to school with his older brother, who was in the same grade as me, Tom Ghilardi. So, we were in bands together back then even. And over the years, I'd see Pat around, and he'd hear him sing. I said, oh my God, listen to this guy sing. Holy Jesus. But when I started this project, I thought, well, that's the guy that's going to be singing. I mean, there's nobody else that could touch him around here. And so I say, hey, Pat, I just got some originals. Are you interested in maybe singing on them? No pressure. If we'll just do a few singles. I just want to get some singles out there. And then he came on board, and he loved it, and I loved it. So, hey, well, let's keep going, right? So then next thing you know, we got 4 or 5 songs. It's like, hey man, why don't we just make a record? We seem to be on a roll here. So then that's what we did. We made a whole record, and then we got a record deal without even playing a live gig, and because we just really honed it and got to the level that we wanted. It had to be top level. We weren't going to put nothing out until we were all 100% satisfied. We're not going to rush something. It's like, oh God, I wish we would have spent a little more time on that one or this one. So we once we accumulated the right songs, we got a record deal with Escape Records out of England, and that was it. So but that didn't happen until about 2019. It took us a couple of years to get an album's worth of material that we were all happy with, because you write a song, say, I don't know about that one, you spend a month on it, now it's just not working, so you're on to another song, another one, right? So it takes a while to find the right songs that all fit in sequence, on a record, and so then the record itself, like you mentioned, got released end of January 2020. Our first gig was April 2020, and we were rehearsing for that gig. And next thing you know, COVID reared its ugly head, and the gig got canceled. And it's like, oh, okay, well, we'll reschedule for 3-4 months from now. COVID will be done by then. Here we are, 2 years later, still waiting to do that same gig.
Yeah, no kidding, man. And I'm sure it'll happen here sooner or later, and you'll have an album to promote. So that's awesome. Let's do this. I want to play another song off the album, and I want to read something that Patrick wrote about this song after we come back. And then I want to also talk to you about the song as well, because I know that you had a great idea for this song as well, which materialized. So, folks, I have Greg Fraser on the show, founder of Brighton Rock, and now Storm Force, his band Storm Force, and we're going to hear the song called Breathe off of Age of Fear. Again, like Greg just said, released late January of 2020. This song, again, is called Breathe, right here on this House of Musicians radio show on Reality Radio 101. Hey, flying listeners, welcome back to This House Musicians Radio Show. I have Greg FRASER, founder of Brighton Rock and Stormforce, on the show this evening, and we just heard the song Breathe from their album Age of Fear. Before I ask you about the song, Greg, I'd like to just read something here that Patrick, the singer, had said, and he said, when writing Breathe, I wanted to approach the subject of depression and how having a solid support system, in this case, a lover, can bring you out of the funk. I also always like the term breathe, as in relax and just breathe. After the lyrics were written, Greg, you brought up the idea of making it a duet. This idea fit perfectly with the song lyrically, and he suggested Serena Prine, and of course, everybody agreed. Patrick goes on to say, I love the way her and my voice sound similar and really mesh well together. She was perfect for the song and can't wait to one day sing it live with her. That is awesome. Just tell me about Breathe.
Well, it was originally, when I write a song, because Pat writes all the lyrics, like I write the vocal melody. So like I'll kind of hum how I want the vocals to kind of go, like as a guide. So, you know, when you're hearing, instead of you hearing a song with just riffs and nothing else, I like to have a vocal melody to follow. So then, you know, the singer can hear that. Okay, I see what you're doing there. Okay, I see how that, you know, the changes. So I'll have working titles. So just so I don't forget when I'm looking down my millions of songs, I got, you know, riffs and stuff. You gotta have some kind of a title. So you instead of song one, song two, you know, you have. So that song was called Ring of Steel. So when you hear the song now, Breathe with Me, originally was Ring of Steel. And Pat didn't like it. Yeah, Pat goes, I don't know. It's the way the song is, and the word steel. It doesn't seem. Leave it with me. So then he came back with Breathe, and at first I went, Breathe. It just kind of caught me off guard. I went, I don't know. And then when he sang it, it's like, oh, okay, no, that's it. So he fleshed out all the lyrics, and they were fantastic. And he sang the whole song. And I kept hearing, go, man, I don't know why, but what do you think about maybe getting Serena, who's a local rock star here in Niagara Falls? She's like a legend around here. And what do you think about getting her coming in and redoing that second verse? Let her do it, and then you guys sing together during the choruses and stuff, and then at the end you can kind of go back and forth. And at the time, Pat goes, I don't know, man. Like, I kind of like what I did there. I said, hey, I like what you did too. I think it's fantastic. But what's the harm in trying? I mean, if it doesn't work, at least we know you nailed it anyways. So then when she came down and she did it, she nailed it. And it's like, wow, man, check that. It just gave it a whole new flavor. Instead of just, you know, and I think a record needs that. Instead of just being one dimensional, every song kind of sounding alike, it gets kind of exhausting. So it kind of added a new color to the song and the album itself. And it turned out great. It's one of our biggest, not so much requested, but when people talk about the record, that song always seems to pop out a lot. They always seem to mention that particular song. So we did a video because of the response, and Serena's in it, and she just owns it. She owns the video, and she's fantastic in the video. And we're really, really pleased the way that song came out. So, yeah, thanks for playing that, and thanks for playing Age of Fear. I really appreciate you guys doing that. It's awesome.
Oh, we appreciate you being here, folks. You can check the video out. It's called Stormforce Breathe, featuring Serena Prine, and just a very professional, amazing video as well. Of course, you can check out Stormforce. Just type them in Google; they'll come up all over the place. Check out their album from 2020 called Age of Fear, and you won't be disappointed. Just amazing classic metal music. And it's been an absolute honor to have you on the show, Greg. But before we go, I want to ask you my favorite part of the show, put you on the spot a little bit. Tell me an absolute crazy story that's happened to you on stage, on a tour bus, on a plane in another country, something crazy that's happened to you that stands out in your mind.
Oh my God. Okay, I remember when we were recording our first record, we recorded that in Brighton Rock in Toronto at Phase One Studios, legendary studio, but we mixed it down in Los Angeles at a recording studio called Amigo Studios, where Van Halen did a lot of recording, and much like the Phase One studios in Toronto, there's two studios. You have Studio A and Studio B, so you have two different bands recording at the same time. And so when we were down in Amigo Studios in Los Angeles, there was rumors that David Lee Roth was going to be showing up there, and so every day I'd go into the lounge, because we'd share the same lounge, and watch TV and just to see who would come out the door. And all of a sudden the door opens and it's Ronnie James Dio.
Oh man!
So I started hanging with him. We were on the same record label. So we had mutual friends, like in the record company. So I had an in with them instead of just being a fanboy. I was kind of on the same level to a certain extent. I mean, obviously he's a legend, but he didn't talk down to me. He talked to me like I'm, I'm the same level as him, which was just so awesome. And so we got to hang for a bit. So then 2 days later, I'm hanging in the lounge. Who comes out of the studio? David Lee Roth. I went, no way. There you look at it. He's right there. Look at that, man. So he kind of said hi, and small talk, but he was talking to somebody else at the same time, so I couldn't get to hang with him. And then we met in the kitchen again. Hey, bud. Goes, hey, what's going on? And small talk, but he didn't really have any conversation. So 2 days later, we're at I don't know if you guys ever heard of the Rainbow Bar and Grill, the legendary
course, yeah.
club. Yeah, and on the Sunset Strip, it's I mean, that goes back to John Lennon used to go there, and the Zeppelin, and everybody goes to that club, right? And so I'm at the club with a couple of the guys in Brighton Rock, and right beside me, standing there, is Dave Lee Roth again. And I went, no way, what the hell, man? So, but he's drunk. He's talking to some girl, and he's drunk. I go, hey, Dave, I met you a couple of times at Amigo Studios. Greg from Canada. Oh yeah, hey man, what's up? Talking about producers and stuff like that. Small talk, but he's kind of drunk and stuff. I go, hey, Dave, any chance I can get a picture with you, man? As soon as I said that, he had like a guy kind of lingering around. He comes right to me. He goes, no pictures. I went, oh, it's okay, man. And I know Dave. We're kind of. He said it's okay. I'm saying that it's not okay. I said, oh, come on, man. What's the big deal? Dave doesn't mind. No pictures, man. That's it. I said, oh shit. Okay. So then Dave starts talking to the girl. So I sit down at the table, and he's literally right behind me. Like, I could reach back and just touch him. So I've got my back turned to him, talking to my keyboard player, Johnny, who's facing me, but he's also facing Dave. I go, hey, John, do me a favor. Can you take a picture of me? Meanwhile, Dave's standing right behind me, right? So I'm thinking, well, that'll be a good picture. I'm sitting here, and right behind me is Dave, right? So sure enough, the flash goes off. The bouncer or bodyguard, or whatever, was right on it. Give me the camera.
What?
Hey, man. Yeah. I go,
that's crazy.
He's taking a picture of me because I know exactly what you're doing. I go, dude, I've got pictures. I was taking pictures all through LA. I got, give me the film right now. I'm going to put your fucking face in, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah. I go, are you serious right now? I go, Dave. And Dave turns his face, looks away. He acts like he doesn't know what's going on. I went, are you serious? And the guy took my film. Yeah,
what?
That was, yeah.
That's a little possessive. That's insanity.
Yeah. So, I mean, I talked to another guy. I go, what's up with that? He goes, well, look at Dave, man. The guy's a mess, You don't want those pictures, people are pretty protective about that kind of stuff. You don't want those pictures
True.
in the magazines, Dave slobbering all over the place, because you never really did see pictures like that ever, right? You always see promotional type shots, yeah. So I kind of get it, but it was a total bummer because and like I said, I had a lot of great shots on there prior to the Dave shot, But yeah, so I don't know. So there's one crazy story.
Yeah, that's when you learn to have a fake film in your pocket and somehow try to switch them for the next time that happens. But that's I kind of get the point, but still just so possessive over something like that. But anyway, great stories. You know what? Absolutely amazing to have you on the show. I know you've had a wonderful music career. I know it's not over. I know you're going to go and promote this Storm Force. And when you do, my wife and I are avid concert goers. We're going to get out and see you. I'd love to come out and see you guys playing. An absolute honor to have you on the show. We're going to follow your progress down the road, get you back on the show in a year or two and see when all this clears up where you're touring and what you're doing. But just before we go, there's a segment of the show I like to do called, well, Gary Labar, what do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what I think. Breathe, what a song, man. The harmonies in that are amazing. I love the bass guitar discord, as Greg knows, we usually with bass guitar follow the roots of the chords, but when you have that off discorded note on some of those chord parts, those rhythm parts, man, does that sweeten up the song. It sounds great. I love it. It's really commercial. And who knows? I hope I get to work with Greg someday. So that's all I can say, dear Lord. But good luck, with this COVID thing. And, Barry and I say it all the time, people need to get back out there and perform and play. And, we're hoping that we can do that as soon as possible. So good luck, Greg.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Gary. And Barry, thank you very much for, the invite. And I'd just like to mention to your listeners, Stormforce does have a website, stormforce.ca. We are on Facebook and Instagram, and I think we might be on Twitter and TikTok and all that kind of stuff. But it's an absolute pleasure talking to you guys, man. And definitely let's do this again. It was an honor, man, and really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, the honor's all ours, and thank you again, Greg, for doing the show. And folks, as Greg said, check out Storm Force. Type him in Google. All sorts of stuff will come out. But most of all, check out the video of Breathe. You won't be disappointed. It's absolutely a professional killer video. Great musicians, great singers. The vocals are just incredible in it. Again, Greg, thank you so much. And we'll get you back on the show down the road here. Thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let's do it again.
Absolutely. And to the listener, I say thank you for being here, and always dance and sing. Let the music bring your soul to the surface for all the world to see. Until next time, have a shuffle your feet kind of week, and good night. You've been listening to this House of Musicians radio show right here on Reality Radio 101.